We are all doomed. I feel nervous, hopeless, anxious, distressed, ashamed. This climate crisis is not our fault. It is a burden placed on us by others, and we have been left to struggle with the consequences. Anyway, there is nothing we can do on an individual basis. It all sits with corporations and governments, doesn't it? You may be wondering why I'm saying some of these words. This is based on responses from a survey I sent to young adults, asking them how they feel about the climate crisis. So many people have felt this worried at some point, including me. So, what came back from the survey? Well, it was an apocalyptic view of the world that looked like a Hollywood doomsday movie. I sympathise with this view because this is how I felt at 14, and I was seeing images on Facebook of all-consuming wildfires, horrifying scenes of floating ocean garbage, and videos of polar bears struggling to cling on to their environment. But somewhere inside me, I knew there must be a solution. And as I've grown older, I have seen the solution unfold before my very eyes. It all begins with individual action. Lots and lots of individual action adding up to reach that magical critical mass number. In other words, the tipping point. This creates a group of like-minded individuals large enough to set off a momentum, beyond which point there is no return. What percentage of the population creates this tipping point? Could it be 50, 70, or 100%? What do you think? Research shows that at only 10% the tipping point occurs. The idea gains enough momentum to pass a threshold and lead to unstoppable change. So, the solution really does lie with individual action. Lots and lots of individual action adding up to reach that magical 10% figure. What can we do? I am 20 years old and I study international relations at SOAS. I'm in my final year and soon to be entering the world of work, as are many of my friends. Although I can relate to this apocalyptic Hollywood doomsday movie, I do feel it's the narrative that many of us have been fed, so we freeze into inaction, feel incapacitated and inadequate. This sounds like a perfectly good business strategy for the continuing and profiting off environmentally damaging resources. When one is acting individually, it can feel like nothing is happening. But something is always happening. You just can't always see it. To put this into perspective, imagine the formation of a small stream. Water trickling over a few rocks. Those rocks are being eroded, but before you know it, you have a small stream. And as the stream grows, it gets bigger and bigger, with more flow going through it, and eventually becoming a river. And at the end of the day, you can either be part of the climate problem or part of the climate solution. Individual action is very important, and every action counts. I am going to share with you 3 milestones from my journey that are contributing to this tipping point. When I was younger, I loved to buy lots of new, cheap and cheerful stuff. I got a high from owning new things. But at age 14, social media was my greatest teacher. Dare I say more than school at the time. Social media shocked and pushed me to action because it made me realise that this cycle of buying new stuff and buying things I'd hardly used or hadn't even opened was having huge consequences on the environment. Milestone 1. My journey began with adopting a vegan diet, which could be difficult for some, but it wasn't too difficult for me as most of my family were vegetarian I just had to cut out the dairy, much to my mum's annoyance. Facebook posts showed several shocking facts which gave me strong enough reasons for the change in diet. The most surprising fact was how a vegan diet can significantly reduce an individual's carbon footprint, so ultimately helping to slow down climate change. Consuming a meat diet generates over twice the amount of greenhouse gas emissions as an equivalent vegan diet. At the time of choosing to go vegan, I was swimming competitively, and our swim coach, Scary Leslie, suddenly became worried about my health. One day she pulled me to the side and said, "I'm really worried about your protein intake." I think she thought my swimming physique was just going to wither away. And I remember saying, "This doesn't actually make much sense to me, as some of the grandest mammals that walk this earth are vegans, like elephants, rhinos and gorillas, and nobody worries about their protein intake, and they seem perfectly healthy." She was not impressed by me answering back. 6 years ago, there was hardly any vegan products on the supermarket shelves. But now there are shelves dedicated to plant-based foods. Food manufacturers had finally realised that if they didn't supply the demand, they'd be missing out on profits. This only happened as a result of individuals choosing to become vegan. Imagine what the supermarket shelves would look like if 10% of the population was vegan, and imagine the impact this would have on reducing climate change. Milestone 2 was to do with fashion. Now I love my clothes, even more than my food. But this journey set in other awarenesses, including my broader carbon footprint. Instagram posts taught me that buying a nice white shirt produces the same carbon emissions as driving a car for 35 miles. Another mind-blowing fact that really got under my skin was the real cost of fashion. That was that the fashion and textiles industry contributes more to climate change than shipping and flying combined each year. Our family used to regularly shop at fast fashion stores because we didn't know any better. But once I understood the carbon footprint of my clothing choices, I had to think twice about buying dresses I really liked. I stopped buying from fast fashion stores, this time much to my dad's annoyance, because he thought I was going to use this as an excuse to start buying designer clothing. Over the last 6 years, many stores have started to produce sustainable clothing sections. I can't wait to see how the fashion industry will adapt as we move towards this 10% tipping point. Milestone 3 came from a light bulb moment when there was that realization that it wasn't just about an individual's carbon footprint, but an overall environmental footprint on this earth. So it really was about everything I used, from the way I washed my clothes, the products I used, and how things were packaged. At the time, Facebook was showing powerful imagery of plastics floating and swirling around in the oceans. This imagery made me feel upset and gloomy, just like the feelings from the survey that I shared at the beginning of this talk. But I wanted to take action. Feeling upset, frustrated and rebellious at the time, and with a small loan from my parents, I set up a plastic-free website. I sold shampoo without the plastic bottle, I sold toothpaste without the plastic tube, and I sold razors without the plastic handle. I called the website Stuff Plastic. Actually, I wanted to call it something else. I thought everything was going really well until I flunked my grades at school. At that point, I had 2 choices: keep the website up or put it down and focus on getting into university. In hindsight, choosing university was the best choice because it provided me with the stepping stones to pursue a career in climate action. Nowadays, there are many sites and stores that stock plastic-free products. So, what can you do as individuals? This could be your journey. Everybody's milestones are going to be different, but only when we are informed can we make better choices. I invite you to explore these 3 areas. 1. Everyday choices are important. What you eat, what you buy, how you travel. 2. Understanding how the principles of supply and demand are intertwined into our lives. 3. Educate yourselves. Number 1. Everyday choices are either increasing or decreasing your environmental footprint. For example, whenever you decide to buy a plastic water bottle to quench your thirst, you are buying water and a plastic bottle. The thirst will be quenched within minutes, but the bottle could take up to 450 years to decompose. Maybe you will float on the ocean to some beautiful tropical island. Worse, it could end up in some sea creature's stomach because it mistaken it for food such as a jellyfish. The key takeaway here is just don't buy plastic water bottles. This choice decreases your footprint. This applies to all products that are packaged in plastic. Number 2. Remember that every day the powerful economic principle supply and demand is in play, and there is no getting away from this principle. As a consumer, you have more power than you think. For example, as more people are opting to buy plant-based milk, the traditional cow's milk industry is declining. The choice is yours here. Which group do you want to belong to? The group that increases your footprint, or the other group that decreases it? Number 3. Education, climate literacy, and awareness is key. This knowledge is also a choice. The starting point is understanding how to reduce your carbon and environmental footprint. We are in the age of a vast ocean of information, with multiple ways of knowing, such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and good old-fashioned books. Instead of choosing to view these doomsday scenarios, we can choose to view positive scenarios and multiply these individual actions. And most importantly, don't forget that whatever you learn, pass it on so you can help us reach that 10%. Finally, don't forget the stream formation analogy. When water is trickling through those rocks, it looks like nothing is happening. But then one day a stream appears. Remember that we just need 10% to reach that tipping point for positive change to happen. Sometimes, when you're acting individually, it can feel like nothing is happening. 6 years ago, I felt alone in my actions. But now, in 2022, we can see the momentum is happening, and it feels like a stream is forming. So, it's 10%, right? What will you do? As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world.